Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Who will be the starter at the quarterback spot for the Miami Hurricanes in 2025? It's a conversation that's kind of waging on Twitter. It's waging on the message boards, and there's a lot of different ways to tackle this question. And I think a lot of really interesting candidates for the Miami Hurricanes to look at. And I think plan number one, the ideal scenario, if you will, was John Mateer hits the transfer portal, and the Miami Hurricanes were able to land him. Obviously, he's going to Oklahoma, and so Miami kind of going to plan B. Now, there's a lot of good options, and I think the majority of Miami Hurricane fans would like to see Emory Williams get the nod heading into 2025. And I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of pros to going with Emory Williams that we're going to get into. But I also look at it and say, not only are there some intriguing quarterbacks currently in the portal for Miami to go after, I also think there's going to be some even more intriguing quarterbacks after the college football playoffs wind down. And I want to get into a potential, couple names to monitor as well that might not be in the portal now, that might be in the portal over the next couple of weeks. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, to the Miami Hurricane fans, we touched on this a couple of days ago. I want to circle back to it with the John Mateer news. Let it fly in the comment section. A lot of different takes to be had. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys, whether we're breaking down commitments, talking about targets, it's been a blast. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start with Emory Williams and you talk about some of the pros of Emory Williams getting the nod. And I think it starts with this Miami Hurricanes program. They really like Emory Williams. And how do we know that? It's one thing for a coach to get up there in front of a microphone and say, we really like Emory Williams. You see coaches do that all the time and then go grab a quarterback in the transfer portal to start over a player. You look at how Miami has navigated the transfer portal, outside of John Mateer, they didn't really show too much interest in other quarterbacks. There was some buzz around Malik Murphy, but it never seemed like Miami really made that strong of an effort to bring him in. That tells me how much this program likes Emory Williams, because there were a lot of solid quarterbacks. I don't think there was any Cam Ward. John Mateer was really the only quarterback that I thought would really elevate an offense heading into 2025. And so outside of John Mateer, I don't think there were a ton of bona fide studs at the quarterback position. There were a lot of solid guys, Malik Murphy, Jackson Arnold, but there weren't any guys that you look at and say that can turn around an offense, that quarterback can win a national championship. And because of that, you didn't really see Miami go after any of those guys. And I think to me, that says, Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, they probably really do like Emory Williams because their actions lined up with what they've been saying. Again, you see a lot of coaches say, yeah, we really like our backup quarterback. And then when it's time to start that quarterback, they're going into the transfer portal and trying to replace him. So one, you really do feel like Miami legitimately likes Emory Williams and thinks he can be the guy in 2025. The other pro, and I think this is kind of an important conversation, is having a guy that you recruited out of high school, developed in your system, and then start and have success with. That's something that's been a knock against Mario Cristobal over his head coaching career. He had success with Cam Ward, but Cam Ward came over from Washington State. I think if you go with Emory Williams and you kind of show the process, you show the proof's kind of in the pudding. Hey, if you're quarterback at the high school ranks and you come to Miami, you're going to get developed into being a really good quarterback. And so if you go with Emory Williams, I think it's sending a strong message to the guys at the high school ranks, the quarterbacks, that, hey, this is a place where you can come get developed into a good quarterback. And so that's always a plus when you can show your process of development specifically at the quarterback spot can work. And then I think finally, if you don't go out and grab a quarterback in the transfer portal, and this is becoming more and more of a conversation, is, allocation of resources. You even go back to last year, like a decent amount of the resources Miami had were going to Cam Ward. And Cam Ward was worth every penny of what he had to go play for Miami. There's no doubt about that. If you don't go out and land a quarterback, it kind of frees you up to get aggressive with some other targets. And we know on the defensive side of the football, there's plenty of positions that we want to see Miami address. But I also think you can really build a strong offense around a guy like Emory Williams. I mean, you look at it and say the offensive line, we're feeling pretty confident is going to be a damn good unit in 2025. If you're going to go with Emory Williams, you probably want to go all in for one of the top wide receivers in the portal. You know, whether it's Eric Singleton, who sounds like he's going to Auburn, or a guy like KC Concepcion. And I look at KC and say that fit doesn't get much better than what he could do with Miami. You know, you saw all the success that Xavier Restrepo had in the Shannon Dawson offense over the last 2 years. I think KC Concepcion could be that kind of guy. And he's just a difference maker that can do so many different things. And if you're Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson and you want to rock with Emory Williams, you probably want to give him as much help as you can in 2025. And you should be able to have the resources to do so if you're not given a lot of those resources to a quarterback in the portal. And I think maybe one of the reasons why it's been a rather quiet start to the transfer portal for Miami was they were waiting for John Mateer to hit the portal. They were waiting to see if they could get in on that recruitment. It didn't work out. I wouldn't be surprised over the next couple of days if you start seeing Miami ramp it up for some of these top targets that would be around the quarterback spot. Now, you look at the cons, and the cons, what I mean is, all right, what if you didn't want to rock with Emory Williams, where could you pivot? I think this one would be really intriguing. Air Noland. You know, Air Noland spent a year at Ohio State, now in the transfer portal. No real buzz around where Air Noland is going to wind up. We know this Miami Hurricane staff really likes this kid going back from when he was out of high school. And there's a lot to like about what Air Noland brings to the table, right? 6'2", buck 90, really good athlete getting outside the pocket, lefty gunslinger that can make all the throws through 55 touchdowns his junior year down in Langston Hughes. This one could make a lot of sense. And he's probably not going to be a guy that you have to throw a ton of resources at because he's not a proven commodity. You know, he's probably more concerned with coming to a quarterback room where he's going to get an opportunity to start. And I think Aaron Nolan would be an interesting one. Here's another one that's not in the portal, but you kind of look at that Oregon quarterback room and say something's going to have to give, right? They brought in 2 true freshmen in the 2025 class. They have Dante Moore coming up. Austin Novosad. This is a guy that you kind of keep your ear to the walls of this Oregon program. They really do like Austin Novosad. I just don't know if he'll get the opportunity to be the guy for Oregon because of a guy like Dante Moore and because of the true freshman they brought in. That's a candidate where he's not a proven commodity, but we've seen him in the spring game, and he looks like a damn good football player. That's a guy you could bring in and kind of just raise the competition level of the quarterback room. And then if you want to really get fun with it, you could talk about a guy like Quinn Ewers. It's getting less and less crazy. You know, if we talked about this 4 weeks ago, it's like, all right, Quinn Ewers is going to the draft after Texas. Well, now what you're hearing is Arch Manning's going to be the guy in 2025. Quinn Ewers not really sure if he's played his way into being a top 2 round pick. If that's the case, and Quinn Ewers has a day 3 grade on him, you very well could see Quinn Ewers hit the transfer portal. You could say the exact same thing about a guy like Jalen Milroe. There's a real possibility. We said over the last couple of weeks that there's no Cam Ward in the transfer portal right now. Outside of John Mateer, you know, I think that's kind of true. That could change over the next couple of weeks. And it's been quieter than we expected in terms of what Miami's been doing in the transfer portal. I wonder if they're kind of saving some bullets in the chamber in case a guy like Quinn Ewers or Jalen Milroe decides to hit the transfer portal. Because you look at the other programs you'd be competing against, programs like Auburn that might have wanted a quarterback. They've went out and got quarterbacks. You know, every team that wanted to get a quarterback for the most part has one already locked in. Miami doesn't. And that could be because they really like Emory Williams. It could be because they're waiting to see if that big name hits. And if that big name hits and everyone else has their money tied up to other quarterbacks, Miami could be in a prime position to capitalize. There's a couple of really good answers. You know, it could just be Emory Williams. And you have a guy in Luke Nickel who just had a hell of a Georgia State playoff game for back-to-back years. I really have a ton of confidence in him. Not really sure what we have with Judd Anderson. it's not a bad quarterback room. And I think you very well have an answer on your roster with Emory Williams. But there's a chance that Miami could be a real player for some big names over the next couple of weeks, that we'll continue to monitor. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. A lot of fun conversations to go over the next couple of days and weeks. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.